Webb County Court of Law, number 2, Melissa Joy Hinojossa. Good morning, Melissa.
Thank you.
Today?
Good morning.
How we doing?
Nice to be here. I'm excited and grateful that you've given me this opportunity to speak with you and tell the community about who I am.
Number 1, the community should be excited for having a woman leader coming up and stepping up for this position. Number 1.
Well, thank you.
That's above all.
Thank you.
And let me ask you a little bit. Many folks do not know what the county courts do, especially County Court 1 and County Court 2. So let's touch base on their importance.
Okay. All right. Well, let me start by saying that all courts are very important. But specifically, the county courts have a general jurisdiction. They hear thousands of cases a year. These courts will hear civil cases, they will hear criminal cases, and in the civil part, we can break down that category to several different areas, which probably, let me see, there's so many areas, but let me touch on some of the very important ones. Of course, we have family cases.
Okay.
We have your general civil cases, we have contract cases, we have probate cases, and then we have a separate area, which I like to put in a separate area. It's also a civil case, but they require so much attention that I like to put them in a separate area, which are the juvenile cases. There are so many individuals that require such delicate attention that I like to put them in a separate area, and there are many nuances in the law when it comes to juveniles. So I would say those are the general areas, but the decisions that come out of this court are so very important. Every decision that's made on a daily basis in this court, as I said, since we've got so many different types of cases, they will touch someone you know or a family member in a very distinct way. And so the judge that sits in this court needs to be very proficient in the law and have be very well versed in the law and have experience to make these decisions that will touch everybody's lives and be permanent decisions.
Exactly right, because not only that, there's 2 courts, correct?
That's correct.
There's County Court 1 and County Court 2.
Yes.
This is the court where ex-Judge Garza was at.
That's correct.
And so let's put it this way. That court hears a lot of divorces, correct?
That's right. That's right. Both courts do. When you file a divorce, the attorneys will have the opportunity to choose whether they want to go to county court or whether they want to go to district court. Many of these divorces do land in these county courts. And so there is a large number of cases that are family cases and divorces. And we all know that, unfortunately, when we're dealing with divorce cases, the situation can be very hostile. There are children that are usually involved, and truth be told, as a former judge, you will never make a decision that makes everybody happy.
No,
but you have to make the right decision according to the law, based on the facts. I have done this in the past. I have a record of doing so, and I'm very proud of it. But those decisions can only be made by an attorney and a judge who has experience in doing so, and who has practice on both sides, who has represented fathers and mothers, who has represented the children. I have also been guardian ad litem, attorney ad litem, representing children. So what I bring to the bench is experience on all sides, and being able to bring that with me when I'm sitting on the bench and making those decisions is invaluable and helps me make the right decision that will be less detrimental for the children, because at the very end, the court needs to do what's in the best interest of the child.
And I'll share a little bit of an experience that I had. For a long time, I was on one side of the fence, and that fence was a father that was in a marriage. And like things happened, I ended up going through a divorce. And during that time frame, yes, we were final divorce, but it took them a long time to get a degree signed because of little bits and pieces of shenanigans that we're going through back then. And that's where I realized that fathers do not have rights here, especially in Texas, You were treated as a criminal, you were treated about this and this and this, and all you wanted to do was equal parenting.
That's right.
How do you feel about equal parenting?
Well, as a judge, we take an oath. We take an oath to do and to make decisions based on the law. It is unfortunate that I have seen in my own experience as an attorney that sometimes fathers do have an uphill battle. It feels, when I've represented fathers in the past, it does feel like you're coming up against the wall, and it shouldn't be like that. I stand for equal rights. The decision shouldn't be based on whether you're a mom or a dad.
Exactly.
I have seen, as a sitting judge, where attorneys will argue that because a father has a job that is, in the middle of the night, we have law enforcement. We have lots of law enforcement that do duty work and shift work.
Exactly.
And that always comes up and always is an issue. And I've seen attorneys argue that as a negative thing. And I understand that it can be challenging for mom and for child, but it shouldn't be something that should be held against them if that's the line of work that they have chosen to do, because they are serving our community. And that shouldn't be the only factor that a court looks at. So I have seen some of these issues come into play, and I specifically give that example because I know that a lot of men, especially here in Laredo, we have a lot of Border Patrol, police that do a lot of shift work, and I have seen that come up in the court, and they argue that as a negative thing. What I can say for myself personally, as a sitting judge in the past, and should I be elected to this position, I will be fair with everybody. I will not hold a father to a higher standard just because he's the father.
Understood.
And decisions will always be made what is in the best interest of that child.
Right. And that's what one wants to hear. Okay?
Correct.
You see here in the past, you've seen a lot of attorneys kind of manipulate judges because of friendships and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, judges would turn the blind eye, and bingo, you have a problem in the future. Just by talking to you, I don't sense that with you. But here's the other one. You're talking about your experience as a judge.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I have been a licensed attorney for 17 years.
Okay.
I graduated from St. Mary's School of Law. I went straight into the practice of law. I have worked with the federal government as a federal public defender for the first almost 5 years of my career. Shortly after that, I went into private practice with my husband, who's also in the business. And I did that at the time because I was married and had young children, and so that was what was best for my family at the time, having that flexibility. But public service always tugged back at me. That was where I wanted to be. There was, as a matter of fact, there was never a question for me when I graduated law school whether I was going to go off to a big city and join a big law firm. There was never a question. I always knew I wanted to come back. I've always been drawn to this community. I was born and raised here, and so this is where I wanted to be. That being said, I was pulled back into the public service sector, which is where I love to be. I then worked for the city, where I was a prosecutor in municipal court, and prosecuted ordinances and traffic tickets. An opportunity came up at the state, where I was a Webb County assistant public defender. Shortly after that, I was appointed by Judge David Peoples out of San Antonio to serve as JP in South Laredo, Precinct 2, Place 2, which used to be where Judge Rangel was placed. He found himself in some problems, and
Right.
I was appointed.
For how long, if you don't mind?
No, I was there for close to about 6 months.
Okay.
I was appointed by Judge David Peoples, who, as I mentioned, is out of San Antonio. I did not know him. That appointment was based solely on, after speaking with him, solely based on my reputation, what people in the legal community had to say about me when he asked as to recommendations as to who should be placed there. So I'm very proud of that, because it wasn't that he knew me or he owed me any type of favor. It was solely based on my merit and what I had done in my career. So I was placed there for a short time. I knew that appointment was going to be for a short time. I could not run for that position. It's not that I didn't want to, but I could not run because I did not reside in the area. After a short time, the commissioners had to appoint someone because it became, under the law, it was their duty to do so. And so they did that, and they then appointed Judge Danny Dominguez. I will say, though, that I was recognized by the Commissioners Court in the short time that I was there for turning that office around. As you can imagine, coming into an office that had those types of issues, you know, the staff was loyal to one leader that they had there. I was coming in basically from one day to another. I did not know anybody there, but I was able to move through that, become a leader. I earned all the staff's respect. And I was commended by the Commissioners Court because that was the first time that that office had ever been out of the red. And so we were able to work together, move past all of that, and get that office running the way it should be. And I'm very proud of that. So I was a judge there for close to 6 months. After that, then I had the opportunity to apply for a position that was the first of its kind here in Webb County, which was to be an associate district court judge.
Okay.
This was a position that was going to be filled by all 4 district judges, sitting judges that are there today. There were several applicants. I put in my application, and I again was selected unanimously by all 4 judges to be the first associate district court judge.
So you have judicial experience.
Absolutely. I served in that capacity for almost 2 years, and in that position, I heard everything that you can imagine. Any type of case that came before the district judges, I was able to hear. I basically took over for the judges when they had a conflict, when they were ill, or they were out at conferences. And I did have also my own docket at some point. So I have gained experience in all types of cases. In that position as well, I have seated juries, I have impaneled grand juries, I have presided over specialty courts. I've done courts in schools. I've presided over jury trials. So anything that would be required of a sitting elected judge, I have done. So I definitely feel that I'm ready for this position, and I know that I am the candidate that has the most experience and the judicial experience that's necessary for this very important court.
That's without a doubt. Now let's touch base on your father.
Yes.
You know, his father is one of the artists of Laredo, one of the great artists of Texas.
Yes.
And he's inspired me because I've dabbled on the paintbrush for many years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he was been an inspiration to many artists coming
Well, thank you.
I don't call myself an artist, but you ain't doing anything. But tell me about that. Tell me about that experience growing up with that type of man in your house.
Well, my father is Armando Hinojossa.
Right.
He has inspired me as well. He has inspired all of us and taught us from a very young age, as has my mother.
She was a teacher, correct?
Yes, she was a teacher. She's retired now. But I come from, and my father taught as well. As a starving artist, you couldn't survive on art alone. So he was a teacher as well, as are my aunts and uncles. I come from a family of educators. So let me start by saying that education has always been the integral part of our family. We've always been taught that no matter what you do, if you study hard, you can achieve, that everything can be taken away from you material-wise and everything else, but your education will always be there. It will never be taken away.
Absolutely.
And so that
starts at the house.
That's right.
That starts at the house.
And I fully believe that, and that has been something that has been taught to me as a very young child, and I carry that with me today. So growing up in a family like that has really taught me about education, has taught me to work hard to achieve what you want. Nothing comes easy. I have worked hard throughout my life, starting from elementary school, where I was taught that I needed to get good grades, and of course all the way up through high school, and worked hard in law school. It wasn't easy. And throughout my career, every step that I've taken in my career has been through hard work. Every time that I got promoted, or every time that I got selected for these positions, I know that it was because of the work that I've done, the time that I've put in, and nothing more. It was all merit-based, and so I'm very proud of that. And so coming from that type of family that values God, values education, has definitely molded me, and I am now passing on to my 3 children.
Of course.
And so I know that that is the basis of my success. So it's a privilege to come from that type of family.
Yes. And you said you went to St. Mary's, correct?
I did. I went to St. Mary's University.
How about high school here in Laredo? Which one did you?
I graduated from Nixon High School. I went to Ryan Elementary, Lamar Middle School, and then Nixon High School. I am a product of public school here in Laredo. I'm very proud of that as well. I like to tell our young kids here that no matter what school you go to, it doesn't matter where you go to, it's the work that you put in. A lot of people, including my kids at times, say, I need to go to this school, I need to go to this school so that I can be successful, and that is absolutely not the case.
Exactly right.
It depends on the work, and I go back to work ethic and your desire to do well.
And the discipline.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
Having the discipline to sit down and study and do your homework and so on and so forth, that comes from the house.
It comes from the house, yes. And I can tell you, being the mother of 3 children, that there's a lot of pushback.
Oh, yeah.
And now with phones and, all of this stuff that we have today that we didn't have back in the day, it's becoming increasingly difficult. But you are still the parent, and you need to try and help them understand that what you're doing and the rules that you're setting in place are for their benefit. And I'd like to share, talking about my kids and talking about education, one of the reasons why this court has drawn me to want to be the judge of this court is because it deals with juveniles. And it stems back from my bringing up, from my childhood and from my family being in education. I, too, was a teacher. A lot of people don't know that about me, but when I graduated from UTSA, I came back home and tried my hand at teaching. I was a first grade teacher at Kazan Elementary. I taught in an integrated classroom, which was challenging, which means that I had special needs children within my classroom.
Correct.
And so that was a challenge, and I did not back down from that. I learned a lot. And while I enjoyed doing that, I did, there was still something in me that I had some goals that I wanted to achieve, and I had always had an interest in law. There was never a lawyer in my family. As I said, my family was all teachers. They were all teachers, but there was something in me that still wanted to explore that avenue. So I then got accepted to law school and did that. But going back to the juveniles in this court, that is near and dear to my heart because I love teaching. I love working with children, and that I think is innate because of my family always giving back to the community and helping with students. I feel that there are some issues with our juveniles. That goes without saying. We see it all the time in the paper, unfortunately, and in the news where these young children are caught in problems, drug issues, mental issues, and they end up in our juvenile justice system. The majority of my career, I also spent doing criminal defense. Okay. So what I have seen in you can imagine all of these cases, 17 years of experience, both as an attorney and as a judge, I have seen in the adult system that many of these juveniles were in our system from a very young age.
And
they continued. They did not get the help that they needed. They were not diagnosed either with mental issues, or they were not sent to rehabs to try and, end that cycle. A lot of these juveniles also just didn't have a family where they had the support to guide them in the right direction. And so I would like to do something in this court, try and put something in place. I know there are things that are being done, but there needs to be more being done because it's not working.
More of a preventative.
That's right.
What it seems is that we're recycling numbers. These numbers were in juvenile, they were juvenile court. So guess what? The same number, we're just going to change the number.
And now they're going to the adult system.
And
That's correct.
they're just
Cycling
recycle them over and over and over.
That's true.
And it seems that the more we talk to public officials, the more we talk to the community, it's more, let's build a jail, let's build another prison system over here, we're going to build another juvenile hall. How about let's build programs to get those kids off and
That's correct.
stop them right then, give them some values. Here's the way I look at things. This is my opinion. We have morals and values that are brought up within the family, okay? And we only have them to a very short period of time, 6 years of age.
Yes.
Because as soon as they become 6 years of age, other individuals are already influencing them.
Sure.
Okay, so we have to work hard. But if you're not there, and the other person comes in behind, and you have good educators, and you have bad educators, as well as you have bad parents and good parents.
Right.
Plain and simple. That's just the way it is. So let's say you get bad parents this year. They didn't give you any morals. You get a good educator. He's going to give you some definition, and you can change that child.
Right.
But if you go into a system that doesn't care,
Right.
well, he's not going to stop caring.
That's right. That's right. And I know that Webb County has some programs in place. However, something is not working. There's a disconnect. And I don't agree that we should incarcerate 100% of these
Exactly right.
juveniles. But I also am not saying that they should go unpunished. I mean, I think that the juvenile judge needs to take into account the background of this child and
Exactly.
where the problem may have occurred, and we need to look into that and see how we can get their way of thinking to be changed and get them out of that cycle. And so at this point, I'm not sure that we have the personnel or the person who is well versed in the developing mind of a juvenile to be able to tell us this is what we need to do to help these juveniles along. It seems like right now all we're doing is from a punitive standpoint, and we may need to do a little more counseling or programs that may help them get out of this cycle. But
get out of that habit.
That's right.
Money we have. Okay, so when folks say we do not have money for these programs, they're wrong. Money we have. If we have 125 million to build a new jail, we have money to build programs. Okay.
Okay.
Plain and simple, we have money to pay coaches and counselors, and let's get these kids off. That's the way I look at things. I'd rather have them saved here than try to save them when they already did it wrong.
Okay. All right.
And that's the way I look at it. And juvenile, the first time I went to the county court, that court was, they had broken into my grandmother's house. 4 juveniles. They had broken into not only her house, 6 other houses in the same block. And they were giving a slap in the hand. This was back in 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And they said, okay, we're going to come back to court later on. We'll give them 45 days. I can't remember what they did. But within that 45 days, 3 of those guys that had been arrested were in front of the court, had robbed some more.
Oh.
And you're like, well, what's going on? You know?
Right. So there had to have been an underlying issue. My guess is drug, probably. Normally, when there's thefts like that, what I've seen is that it's normally a drug issue, and they're going in to try and grab stuff that they can go in exchange for drugs or hawk or whatever it is.
You're correct.
So there's always an underlying issue, and that's my point, is that we need to get to the underlying issue so that these children don't continue to be offenders and find themselves in the adult system where the last alternative at that point is going to be prison.
Yeah.
And so if we get them early enough, and if we have a judge who's willing to work with them and do something that can prevent them from becoming adult criminals, that's going to benefit the entire community. And not to mention that juvenile who then has an opportunity to do something positive in his life because he won't have an adult record. So we need to look at that as well.
Some of the past judges, and some of them I've known personally on a personal basis, and you're the only one that I've heard, let's help them now, instead of we're doing the wrong thing and they did the wrong thing and they should be getting this and we should be changing this law. You're the only one that says, let's help them now.
Well,
Okay.
that's how I truly feel.
I've heard other public officials, I remember Tino Juarez used to say, we have to get them into programs, but nobody would ever care about it. Okay? And there's a lot of different things that we can get kids out of, whether we stick them into painting, music.
Give them a different outlet. Let's give them another outlet.
Exactly right. Let's expand. If you're not good at basketball, maybe boxing. If you're not good at boxing, put you in painting.
If we keep these kids busy, they won't have time to do these other things.
Exactly right.
So, and I can speak from personal experience with my children too. So
You're correct.
So I think that there's things that we can do in this court. And I'm excited at the prospect of being judge of this court.
And we wish you the best luck.
Thank you. And today is National Voter Registration Day, so I want to remind our public, please go out and register. The only way that your voice can be heard is to vote. It is your duty, it is your right, and you need to go out and vote. We can't complain about what's happening in our city, in our county, in our national government if you don't vote. So please do that. Vote for whoever you want to vote for, but just be heard. So, I'd like to leave with that message.
Anything else you'd like to bring
forward?
Well,
I'd like to say that I decided to run for this position because I know that I'm the most qualified candidate. This was not a decision that I made at the spur of the moment. I really contemplated this decision. This decision, I guess, was made over several months. I started contemplating running for this position back when the position became open. When they removed Judge Garza from this post. I applied for the position. I was not appointed to the position, but I believed back then, as I believe today, that I am the most qualified.
Back then, there were several that
there were
turned in their.
Yes, I believe there were 7 or 8. I'm not exactly sure, but we did an interview in front of Commissioner's Court, and did all of that. Applied for the position.
The bar was behind you.
That's absolutely right. The commissioners did seek the input of the local bar association. An anonymous poll was given, and the results all showed that I was at the top of every single one of those questions. And the last question is asked to who would you like to see as judge of this court, and I was at the top of that poll.
You want
I'm very proud of
you want
that.
compassion, and you have that.
Thank you.
And the citizens of Laredo understand, and the citizens of Laredo are behind you. That's plain and simple. So
thank you.
We wish you the best, and just as you said, you're going to be the fair judge.
Absolutely.
And that's all we want, is for a fair judge to be in place.
That is the main thing here. I mean, if you go out and ask any person in Laredo or anywhere around the country, what would you want in a judge?
Fairness.
We want fairness, we want honesty, we want integrity. When I go into that court, I want to know that I have a fair shot just like the other person next to me, and that the decisions will be made based on the law and based on the facts and nothing else.
Exactly right. Well,
I'm ready to do that.
You.
Thank you.
And
I
wish you the
appreciate it.
best.
Thank you.
Again, till next time here in Gloves Off.